get to get them working again. And at about 20 past 3 in the morning, there was sufficient light, and there the crop circle was, this huge crop circle. Now the point about that crop circle is that in the documentary which I made of that event, Terry Toftenes did an awful lot of work involved with that. Terry Toftenes, brilliant award-winning filmmaker from Norway, and he had a press conference, and I ended up doing the press conference, recording it, and then I realised, oh gosh, I've got to make a video about this, or a documentary about it. Now what's happened is, that was a man-made crop circle, and we've got to understand that these crop circles, a lot of them are made by teams of highly skilled graphic artists, people who can make such a large formation like this and keep it in perspective and keep it in formation. Am I going to be all out of shot for half of that?
No, you're right.
So the point about it is that graphic artists, to make these beautiful formations, takes an awful lot of skill. Now the point is, when they're made at a time of the year when you've got the least amount of night. Okay? Now we're now pretty late in the season. Normally this crop would have been harvested by now, because we're now August, third week of August,
Yeah.
and normally these fields are harvested, but the crops are 2 months late. But normally in the middle of June, middle of July, you have very little time to make a crop circle. And when Dr. Simeon Hine was having a formation made to specifically analyse the effects of what a crop circle does to people, why do people go to them, sociologically speaking? Because make no mistake about it, these formations attract a great deal of attention from various agencies, including the royal family and other high dignitaries. So for a simple bunch of hoaxed formations in some circles in the fields of Wiltshire and surrounding counties, there's a little bit more involved here. And what's involved is interceptions with intelligences indigenous to the earth and other dimensions, because shadow entities are being filmed, being photographed, orbs, intelligent orbs, or orbs of light which seem to respond in an intelligent manner, come way up and then come down. Sometimes you can see them coming way up in the heavens,
Yeah.
and then come down and go across the formations. And when they see people, these things divert. And there are photographs of people like ourselves in a formation, and then beside them there will be black shadow humanoid entities. And the circle makers who've made formations, I've interviewed them, I've talked to them personally, they actually have been making a crop circle, and they actually encounter these shadow entities, whatever these beings are. Now they could be, well, we don't know what they are, so we won't speculate. They're just humanoid entities between 5, 7 or 8 feet tall. Some of them have been seen to appear where a twinkle of light sparkles, and then an entity will form from that. So this area is known for this kind of phenomena. But what's happening is that with Dr. Simeon Hine's formation, for instance, they were given an extra hour of time. And likewise with the 777 crop circle, the flash of energy which shut down all the observational equipment, we now feel is when a time loop closed. In other words, the people making the formation were given a great deal of extra time to make sure that 1,000 foot by 500 foot formation was finished. And this is where we're dealing with the manipulation of space-time, the manipulation of reality, and these kind of experiments are being carried out here, so that the fabric of the matrix, the fabric of space-time itself, is being experimented on. And this is a very serious situation, because it means that the reality we think that we are living in is being interfered with. And we need to find out about that, we need to understand about that. And that's why we're sitting in a crop circle explaining it.
Brilliant.
Now, if people want to look up the space-time weapon systems, Tom Bearden's written a number of books on this. It's in the physics, the ability to change space-time and manipulate it and change it and create all sorts of portals and things. This is what John Irwin's team was dealing with, and the Germans were dealing with this thing called the Bell.
Oh, yes.
Now, the Bell was a space-time device, and they were dealing with it in the 1930s, although the books will say they were dealing with it during the war. And the problem about this is that the Germans have also been involved with space-time devices and technologies in the underground bases in Peasmore and the relevant bases associated with that in Berkshire and in the countryside of the English countryside. And this is where we've been meeting our ancestors, the Greys, or the reptilians, and other beings have been encountered. And these are beings which were manufactured by humanoid people, us, our ancestors, over 1.5 million years ago. And this is spread out throughout the universe, or the universes.
Okay.
And what's happening is that the mistakes that were made all those years ago are now being made again. And it's called transhumanization. And transhumanization and the application of technology to manufacture robotoid, cloned beings which involved animal experiments, the actual mating of humans, all sorts of things have been going on. And in the Soul Catcher series of books written by Dr. Robert Duncan, they've made it clear that they wish to totally control human consciousness completely. Every single facet and element of our thinking processes will be monitored and controlled, because the people that we're dealing with feel that they are somehow superior to all other races on Earth and wish to destroy, control or obliterate those other races. And that's what's happening now. Poisons are being put into our air, our atmosphere, our drinking water. Our children are being satanically abused by those who control and run this world. And the situation is that unless ordinary folk start paying attention and waking up, and by not engaging these horrific creatures which are set to destroy this earth and destroy us on it, take control, wipe us out, make us into cyborgs, imprison us in false realities, which is the experiments which have been done involving these sort of crop circles. If you're able to manipulate space-time and make a complex formation or do whatever you want, it means you can then manipulate space-time and put people in that, and they think they're somewhere where they're not. That's where a lot of the abductions happen. There's constant variation. They're constantly referring to time. People have missing time. Missing time is, or this is the key. They have got control of space-time. And I refer to this as a reality management system. And by applying direct control to human consciousness, you can then use human consciousness to manufacture the realities that they think they're in, but they're not. So they can believe they're in a particular situation or believe they're seeing certain things when in fact it's been programmed into their consciousness. So by accessing human consciousness and the consciousness of all perceiving life forms on this earth, they can engineer us out of our own reality and make us think that we're still in a reality which is long since gone. And in the meantime, this can then propagate using our DNA, because our DNA, we are seeded races from other parts of the universe and we're in a particularly strong and densely packed space-time density environment where the matter that we're made of is much denser than the matter that most other beings and races and intelligences and stable reality systems are made from, which is why when we perceive ETs, they'll be shimmers or black entities, or they'll be sort of, you can see through them. So the only way that an ET and these aliens can exist here is to exist in humans, in the human bioframe, which basically means that the human beings you see out there are not all human, because what they've been doing is directly engineering the seat of the soul. Some people believe it's the pineal gland, and by changing this pineal gland, by changing its frequency, by changing it using chemicals and toxifying our food, it means that non-human souls can then enter a human bioform, and then when they've done that, these non-human bioforms can actually then take control and work and get into and infiltrate through the population. And there's been no clearer example of that as in the former MASH project, which I was involved with, where it's clear that reptilian type so-called aliens have broken cover and admitted that they are in human bioframes, what I would call the bioframe, the body frame. Now the point is, just because you're reptilian doesn't make you a bad person. It means the soul intention is what's important, and this is going to affect lots of different realities and dimensions. And the research that we've been doing in Richmond, where the Richmond Barnes area of London, Richmond Park, where there has been a huge amount of underground workings going on with extremely dangerous, devious creatures, which are attacking the Earth's energy itself, with ritual satanic child abuse, with the horrors of young boys and children being submitted to the most terrible tortures. So that trauma is pushed into the earth. And what's happening is that entities are attacking, and other dimensional entities are on the attack here. Now what they're wanting to do is they want to use the DNA that we're made from, because our DNA has got many other seeded so-called alien races in us. It means they can use the DNA of people on this earth to jump in a quantum jump to many other civilizations across the universe. And for this reason, we are now in a state of war for the survival of ourselves, our consciousness and our souls. Because once we are engineered from ever re-entering the human bioform, we'll never reincarnate. We will never have humans actually in human bodies. And as I say, this has happened before, and they're re-engineering it again. Those who failed ascension in the past, and they'll know who they are, they call themselves a certain religious order, when they're in fact not. They're fake. They're a fraud. And they feel that they've got some kind of right to destroy life on Earth so they can propagate their own particular species. But that's what all things on the Earth do in many respects. I mean, all trees, all life forms, all things will fight for their space to exist, for their little patch of the Earth to live on. A tree will propagate toxins into the ground so that tree protects itself and it lives. But that's how life works in this life cycle. One thing eats something else, something comes and something goes. So, but what's happening here is we now understand that we've got some kind of parasitic interdimensional life force, which is now set to propagate through all the other races and beings which are associated with this earth, and take them out as well. And because this is such a serious thing, the battle lines have now been drawn here on this wonderful earth, and there are other beings coming in from other environments to see how this is going to work. And what's happening is that by humans giving their permissions away, which is why the laws of physics work here on the basis of permission. So, for instance, the laws of reality work on the basis of permissions. So that's why the Illuminati, these toxified Illuminati, tell you what they're going to do, and then by not challenging them and by not basically stopping them by saying, no, you can't do that, it gives them the permission to carry out what they want to do. So the ordinary individual person needs to wake up, educate themselves, and stand up for their own existence and own future. If you don't do that, if you just simply lay back and say somebody else will do it, or the Archangel Gabriel's going to come down and save us, or the spaceships from the Nibiru's going to come and save us, and that's not going to happen. That's all just fiction. It's all imagination. We have to say no to these creatures and beings and identify them and expel them, unless they wish to engage in some kind of reasonable agreement of some kind. But it seems that the agreements made with the Greys by various governments have all been reneged on. And the Greys, as I say, are us from the past, that we modified ourselves in the past. We went through all this 1.5 million years ago and created these soulless, unreasoning, unfeeling creatures, and now it's all going to happen again. And the project Soul Catcher, transhumanization, the agenda for 2045, all the rules and regulations, the destruction of our natural crops, the banning of seeds, natural seeds, the control by Monsanto and other companies of our food supply so they can profit and patent. They can take a patent out on nature and control it. If we don't wake up to this and stop it, we will have no right to have any further existence within the next 50 to 60 years. Happy days.
Wow.